So, how do we deal with emotional people? Find out on this episode of Incremental Health Tips. Welcome to Incremental Health Tips. My name is Jared, and as always, I'm joined by my co host Liz. Today, we're going to be discussing 4 tips on how to deal with emotional people. As you may have noticed, the past couple episodes have been about dealing with difficult people or challenging people, and so it's important because so much of our lives revolves around human interaction. So, Liz, why do you think it's important to be able to deal with emotional people? Like, can't I just ignore emotional people until they're not emotional and then deal with them?
So one of the main reasons I think this is an important topic is because people do get emotional. Sometimes they're irrational in their emotion, or sometimes they've just been going through a hard time. Like if someone's lost a loved one, it's very common and normal for them to be feeling emotional and react emotionally. So there are those stressful times in life where emotion is a normal response, and learning how to be able to respond to emotional people can help de-escalate that emotion for them.
Well, and also it's not always immediately apparent that someone is emotional, because some people don't display it right away. So getting right into it, what is the first tip on dealing with emotional people that you would suggest?
So you want to pay attention to what the person is saying, and particularly you want to pay attention to what it is they're feeling. So even if they're not directly saying what they're feeling, if you get the sense that they're angry or frustrated, then it can be helpful to acknowledge that you can see they're feeling emotional. And, you can ask, are you feeling angry? Are you frustrated? And try to get a sense of what is going on emotionally for them and what has caused that emotional impact.
Well, and also I think a part of that would be ask not, telling somebody you're angry doesn't necessarily de-escalate that. So asking, and I think your tone and the way you approach it is also really important.
Yeah, and learning how to listen to someone closely, it's really something that a lot of people don't think about. They just think, well, I heard you, so therefore I understand. And really, it's not just about hearing the words someone is saying. It's about hearing what they're saying and also at the same time recognizing what they're feeling, and then communicating to them that I've actually heard what you've had to say. This is what I hear you saying.
All right, so what's tip number 2?
That was it.
Oh, okay. Well, so really letting them know that you are listening and hearing what they're saying. Okay. And that can again de-escalate, or maybe it doesn't change their emotional state, but maybe it helps them understand that you have a common goal or that you're on their side.
Well, it's part of processing emotions is that, sometimes just being able to express what you're feeling allows you to process that emotion and to allow that emotion to dissipate.
Right, that makes sense. What is the third recommendation?
So if the person is angry or tearful, don't run away and avoid that emotion. You're not going to be killed by a non-violent expression of emotion. So having some tolerance for allowing someone to express how they're feeling can help you communicate more clearly with that person in the long run, even if you find that conversation challenging.
Well, I think it can also help you recognize emotions more easily in the future. If you deal, like, it, just as an example, if you work in customer service and you deal with a lot of people day in, day out, You're undoubtedly going to come across people who are angry and difficult and at a heightened sense of emotion. But the more you deal with those people, as unpleasant as it is, the more you're going to be able to recognize some of the warning signs that maybe a customer you're dealing with is starting to lose patience. And so this also helps you build your skills and abilities and emotional intelligence, really, when it comes down to it.
Yeah, and a lot of the times we want to be able to fix things and we want to fix it right away. And when it comes to emotion, emotion is not something you fix right away. Emotion is something that gets expressed and it needs to be resolved and acknowledged in order for the person to let go of it. So just hearing what someone is saying while they're in their emotional state, acknowledging what they're saying, that's actually allowing them to do that work that they need to do in order to process that emotion and let it go.
Well, and I think we've covered this before, but sometimes it might be necessary if somebody is talking to you about it to ask, is this something you want me to listen to you on or do something about? Do you want me to fix this or do you want me to listen? And that might be more in the context of a relationship, but nonetheless, that understanding that can be really important as well.
Yep. And I mean, sometimes someone can get emotional, like they can get angry because they want a problem to be fixed. And then there's two elements there. There's one of fixing the problem and the other one of the emotion that has been caused by the problem.
Okay, so what's the fourth tip?
So I would suggest don't try to calm the person down. If you're trying to calm them down, that's to make yourself feel better and make the situation more manageable for you. So just allowing them that space to be able to express how they're feeling and openly talk about those feelings and what they're upset about, that is what is helpful to that person, to allow them to express that. And so if you're more focused on making yourself more comfortable in the situation, then it's not giving that person that space to work through those emotions.
Well, and it also may reinforce a lot of the negative emotions or thought distortions the other person is experiencing.
Well, and I can also see other situations where if it's a boss dealing with this, that, they'd say, why do I have to allow my employees to do this? I'm not their therapist. I don't want to deal with their emotions. And in that case, you would want to keep it brief, but you still want to give them at least a little bit of space to be able to express themselves. And then you can make a recommendation about how they should be able to handle that emotion, whether they're getting some support from an EAP or something like that, that allows them to do the more in-depth processing that a manager obviously wouldn't be trained to do.
Well, and managers oftentimes can really provide a lot of reassurance by, if it's a particularly busy or stressful time, by saying, look, I know we're swamped right now. This is really tough, but, we've got to get through it. That can sometimes really be reassuring, because the emotional state of the employee may not necessarily be at the manager. Now, Liz, there's one more thing I wanted to touch on before we end for today, and that's not everybody is good at recognizing what emotions they're actually feeling. And so if you're experiencing anger, for example, you might not feel like that is anger, but it is anger. And I imagine this is an issue that comes up, and this sort of issue happens in therapy. So what would you say to somebody who has a lot of emotions but they haven't sorted out? Is this something that they should seek a therapist for, or is there some sort of tools or resources they can use themselves?
So I do think contacting a therapist can be very helpful, but a good starting point is you can Google a feelings wheel, and that can give you a better sense of the variety of feelings. And, like the different levels of anger, because frustration and anger are quite similar, but they're different intensities. So getting a sense from some content that you can easily get online, it can really help you get that sense of what those emotions are and help you distinguish between the variety of emotions that you're feeling.
Because sometimes the first step in really dealing with our emotions is understanding what emotion we're feeling, and that can sometimes be a very difficult thing to do. Well, that's all the time we have for today, but if you enjoy our content, please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. We upload new episodes every Tuesday at 11 p.m. Eastern Time, unless the odd time that we're late, because sometimes life happens. So we're sorry to our listeners about this past week. So anyways, until next time, remember that small steps can lead to big changes, and we'll see you next time.